on our hands. In terms of our affiliates, I will start off with the affiliates first, what they're going through, and after I would highlight the commuters. You know, I don't even know where to start because there is so much. And like you said earlier, there's a myriad of issues, a lot of issues to discuss with. I would say we were kind of fortunate to have had a meeting earlier today at the ministry with the contractor on the West Coast Road. And it was kind of cordial. I will not say it's fruitful until we see what's happening. We discussed a number of the inconveniences and hazards along the road. So we're hoping that...
so what are those inconveniences and hazards?
Okay, Tim, as I was driving up to the studio, I received a call that one of the things we highlighted was the cul-de-sac Hess area, and some remedial works started prior to this afternoon, which is, I can say, probably a start. But that doesn't cut it. We have a lot of trenches along the road, which is not properly demarcated. And when I say demarcated, I'm talking about reflective signs for nighttime visions. I'm talking about lighting. I'm talking about over 3 months, some of these trenches have been by the roadside. And you have some still jutting out. Some vehicles have hit some of them and they're laying on the road, cutting our tires. There's a lot. Next to the Rubis office in cul-de-sac, there is this culvert which has been built. And this has been there for maybe about a month or more. And I guess they're letting it cure. But however, there's a hole in the center of the road, which is probably about 24, maybe 30 feet deep. And you only have drums and a plastic mesh right around it. There's no lighting. Information I've received is that some vehicles have hit the drum and gone down in that. Then you have the road sinking because of the backfilling, and the bottom pan of our buses are touching. And I'm not talking only for the buses. I'm talking about motorists on the whole, but my field is for the sector. So we have a lot of issues, Tim. We have the vegetation which is growing on the roadside. Pedestrians are now walking on the road, and the media can take a look from cul-de-sac to Marigo, Roseau. You have school children. Vegetation has taken over the road. It has actually enclosed on the road, and this is not acceptable. To further compound the problem, we have the roadworks being carried from cul-de-sac to about Soufrière. And it's about 44 miles, thereabouts. At present, and I'm not saying that I'm an engineer, but I'm speaking as a layman and what is affecting us. The company has graded the surface of the road.
Which company?
Namalco.
And they're from Trinidad?
I suppose most likely yes,
okay.
They are, based on my information. And the entire surface of certain parts of a good length of the road has been graded. And you know with the inclement weather what happens. The runoff, it's bumpy. It's just a mess. And right now, some of us commuters, some of us bus operators, we'd rather park our buses. It's too costly to run a bus right now. In addition to that, we have the ministry sitting pretty, with commuters being stranded on the buses, and we are the one facing all the brunt of the bad talk and the backlash and the cursing, which is not fair to us. You know, I asked at that meeting today, does the ministry have any technocrat, any engineer monitoring what's happening on that stretch of the road? Because what is happening there it's unacceptable. And I saw my president spoke in a language he has never spoken, on tone of voice he has never spoken before.
And that's Mr. Godfrey Ferdinand.
Mr. Godfrey Ferdinand. I want to say that, and I did inform personally at the meeting today that we're going to meet with the Soufrière, Canaries, Ancillary, Millet, Lacroix, Jacmel. And we're going to decide the way forward. We're going to meet with them because they've written to us, they've highlighted the issues, we have toured the area and we have seen what they're facing. And we don't see we can go further or that long that way again.
But to be fair to the authorities, what they're trying to do is to remedy the problem, to make the road motorable, because it obviously was in a bad state prior to the commencement of the construction activity.
Tim, once again, we do understand there will be inconvenience when roadworks are being done. However, the way it's been done is unacceptable. Tim, we understand there'll be a little traffic. We understand there will be, you know, we understand there will be potholes, but what is being done now is unacceptable, Tim. It's not productive. And it's taking a toll on our health. It's taking a toll on our buses, our livelihoods. What are we to do now? And the worst case scenario, you know, hearing from the ministry. Anybody. I mean, in the past, we'd have a liaison officer, you know, letting us know there'll be inconvenience, there'll be a road, you know, one-way traffic and stuff. We're not seeing that. And reports, and I quote, reports reaching us is the management of Namalco is rude. Very disrespectful. That's report reaching us. That's unacceptable. It is unacceptable, and we will not stand for it anymore.
When you say you don't stand for it anymore, what do you mean? What kind of action?
We've met with them. We met with the company this morning. We had a cordial meeting. I will not say fruitful again. And we have outlined our concerns, and they have agreed to address most of it. So it's a wait-and-see situation. Like I said earlier, I received a few calls at the cul-de-sac because I've been monitoring. Something is being done in that area. So let's see what's going to happen. I mean, we have taken enough. What happened on the Millennium Highway, we will not accept it.
Do you take any kind of blame, any responsibility in terms of your tardiness to act and also to speak in this forthright manner as you're doing tonight? Maybe that is the reason why the authorities are taking you guys for granted, the SOPT and other members of the motoring public.
I need to drive that point home. We are very passionate. We are very patriotic. And we watch the bigger picture. We think of commuters. But there comes a point when you realize people are taking you for granted. They're taking you for granted because you have not agitated. And the time has come when we're going to agitate for what we think we duly deserve when it comes to roadworks.
You're saying that you're getting the brunt of the complaints and agitation coming from the commuters. What kind of support are you getting from the Ministry of Infrastructure?
Tim, when it comes to that road network being rehabilitated, I would say zilch, nada, nothing.
Why do you think that's the case?
Tim, I think because the ministry don't have a liaison officer or an effective one which liaises with the National Council or the associations, although it was promised this morning that that's going to be different. With the Millennium Project, I was privy to be part of that committee. And I must say I should be. But National Council had a rep, and there was some kind of liaison officer, you know. We had a chat room, we had emails coming in. But with this Namalco company, there's nothing happening. Nothing happening. I mean, how much can we take again? Tim, you would pass, especially the last, maybe from the time this roadwork started, the backlog of human traffic on the bus stands. And everybody blames the bus operators. We've taken a lot. And we feel now we've had enough.
Because that's one of the issues I wanted to address on this evening's broadcast. The fact that you see so many commuters being left stranded on the bus stands, many bus stands in the nation's capital on an afternoon. And I remember saying to someone just on Monday of this week that when somebody has left work, they are basically looking forward to going home to take a rest, to take a shower, because especially if it's a weekday, you have to prepare for work the following day. And I was already blaming the minibus drivers and saying that there's needs for some kind of system to be put in place so that this does not become a habit. Nearly every afternoon you see that commuters assembling on the various bus stands and they look stranded, they look depressed, they are incensed, agitated, annoyed.
Tim, one must take into account everything holistically. You have buses breaking down. We have an issue with parts, sourcing parts. The parts don't last. You have the drivers' fatigue. Tim, there was some work being done on the chaussee, for example. And it took some of our operators 45 minutes to get the bus stand when they were on the chaussee. How do you deal with that? Team, remember, to get to the bus stand is a problem. Leaving town is a problem. So the problem is not solely the bus operators. And if one has to measure a bus driver or bus operator by the local parlance that we are Waji, we like money. Who wouldn't want to make money?
Mm-hmm.
Who wouldn't? Tell me. When the money is available to be made. We would profit the opportunity. But there are certain things that are beyond us. With the chaussee road, we understand the inconvenience, and the minister did speak with us about it. So there was adequate notice, and there's a little briefing off and on. Although we have some concerns, which I'm going to come to in a while.
Let's just deal with the concerns as we own it.
Where the Antwerp bus stand is located, Bocage, Antwerp, and so on. I don't want to go into mentioning the company's name, but they dug the culvert leading to the bus stand, and some buses were trapped in there. Without notice, when the president called me, I tend to refer to the ministry. The ministry was flabbergasted by that, and it was sort of resolved. These are the kind of things we're talking about. Communication, dialogue. If you dialogue with us, and something again, Tim, if you're going to dig that culvert, open a road just a priority for bus drivers, bus operators. You put a sign, only operators, so we can, we can ply our trade. Tipping point, case in point, when it comes to the MON, there's some building, some construction being done just below the Governor General, which we understand. At least we pick up people from by Marcy, for example, they live lower down the MON. How do we work that out? At least be considered. The authorities should be, and I'm not blaming the ministry, probably the police. But I'm saying the authorities should be considerate to have at least some priority in certain times for the bus drivers. So they're making our work more difficult for us.
But shouldn't the NCOPT take some kind of responsibility for this? Maybe you all are not sufficiently proactive, maybe not sufficiently aggressive, not taking the lead in terms of coordinating with the various stakeholders so that matters of that nature do not surface and do not inconvenience you all.
Tim, how does the National Council tell the contractor how to do the job? I mean, common sense would tell you. There's no way you do scratch off the entire surface of a long span of road like that, and it's not going to be repaved or resurfaced at the soonest. Take into account the weather conditions. I mean, that's basic common sense, right? That's basic common sense. You want to resurface a road, and you scratch off the entire surface for how many miles? And you know the weather condition, we're in the hurricane season. And I take it the companies from the Caribbean, you're not foreign, to say you're from, Mars or somewhere. Does that make sense?
But you spoke earlier on about the cost of spare parts and the fact that the wear and tear, the impact that the poor roads are having on vehicles, damaging them and so on, and you have to bear the cost. Shouldn't there be some kind of provision whereby some entity, whether it's the Ministry of Transport, whether it's some government department, that should be able to compensate minibus operators?
Well, Tim, I will tell you something. At present, the council is considering speaking to a legal mind with respect to what's happening on the West Coast Road and probably other areas, because we cannot continue to be losing rims and tires that frequently. We cannot. And note my word, we are considering to speak to a legal mind about that.
So it might not happen. It's a possibility.
Well, Tim, before you actually take a decision, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. You want to consult your affiliates. Because council does not work in isolation of their affiliates. There are things we may do on the spur of the moment because of the situation at hand, but there are times we like to consult with them.
But have you had any discussion with the authorities, the Ministry of Transport, on this?
On what exactly?
On being compensated for the fact that the toll that the poor roads are taking on vehicles, damaging the various parts?
We all know in this country when it comes to you taking the government to court, the process.
No, I'm just
It
talking
takes
about
forever.
consultation.
Tim, we have reached a crisis proportion where we are thinking of a number of things. We have a number of cards which we can play, and we are looking at all. We are trying to put all in one basket and see which one we can explore. Which one is more viable? Which one will work like hand in glove with the government and the contractor? We do not want the back and forth. We do not, and we have always maintained National Council on Public Transportation will never disrespect any government of the day. We work like a matrix. We work hand in hand. That's how we operate. But the time has come when we need to take some strong decisions.
But wouldn't some observers say that you've been in more, it's unprecedented in terms of the level of patience that you have exhibited towards this administration compared to previous administrations?
Well, Tim, we've been accused of that. We've been accused of that. And I don't think it's fair that I don't think this accusation is accurate or it's fair. Under the previous government, we had reasons why we could have acted differently, and we did not. With this government, we are disappointed. I want to make it clear. We are disappointed with certain things, the way it has gone down. And I can make mention of the disciplinary committee. We have made requests to the government of the expired agreement we had. And I can go on. So we are disappointed. There's no two ways about it. But Tim, you know the thing is, we do not want to just agitate and make trouble. We want to maintain a cordial relationship no matter what. And we want to be careful how we go about it. So we are giving all these things careful thought.
But does that amount to adopting or exhibiting a laissez-faire attitude as opposed to being cordial towards the government and maintaining good relations, and at the same time your members are suffering and they're paying it in their pockets?
Tim, this is why this morning there was a different tone and language spoken at the meeting this morning. And I can assure you that. I will not go into detail. And I'm pretty certain the contractor understood where we're getting at and what the consequences might be if we continue in that vein.
But shouldn't have taken use the NCOPT speaking tough to the contractor? Shouldn't have not involved, let's say, the infrastructure transport ministry acting on behalf of commuters and other road users as far as that project is concerned?
Well, Tim, the National Council was called in by the contractor. We were invited to that meeting. Okay. I did an interview yesterday, and I will not say as a result of that interview, Central Times, but they called us in. And whenever we are called in, we try our best to attend and hear what has to be said. And we profited the opportunity to highlight all the issues we think are pertinent at this time.
Disciplinary action against minibus drivers. You want a mechanism set up whereby this can be done. Why do you think that the ministry or the authorities are reluctant to act on this particular sore point?
Tim, I don't think it's reluctant. I think we've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Any government that's in power in St. Lucia, any legislation that's not generating revenue, it's not a priority for them. And I can give you examples. You watch the license for the vehicles. This piece of legislation was done overnight. It was drafted and done overnight. It's generating revenue for any government. And I can give you more examples. So most times, most legislation which is not revenue generating is just not a priority. I mean, the government has given an excuse that they don't have enough draftsmen. The previous, this one, the same issue. The last time we checked, the draft legislation is at the AG's office. What can we do? And Tim, I will tell you, the NCOPT greatest fear, one of the greatest fear, without this piece of legislation, we are watching what's happening now. The caliber of drivers on the road, the young drivers, the aggressiveness. What if they come into the sector with all of that? I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is one of our greatest fear. If we don't have the disciplinary committee, we may have a serious problem on our hands. Because remember, some of us are phasing out. you have a younger generation who might take over. So we are preparing. You see, the thing is, the National Council is not reactive all the time. We are proactive. We think ahead. We think ahead. So we don't just react when something happens. We think before certain things happen.
But you see, what I find very strange is why the reluctance or failure of the authorities to act in putting this disciplinary committee together and ensure that it has teeth, when there are so many examples of there being different feuds. You have commotions involving minibus drivers and commuters. And in the era of social media, this is documented via WhatsApp videos, and it is in circulation. And the authorities, I'm sure, are privy to those encounters. So why not put some mechanism in place to remedy the problem or to deal with it if it escalates, if it gets out of hand?
I'll allow the minister and the ministry to answer that. We have done all we've had to do. I'll let the minister and the ministry answer that. I can't answer for them.
But how do you deal with acts of indiscipline on the part of
the association has a constitution, and we go by that. But there are certain things that are beyond us. For example, an operator would do something which is very drastic. For example, under the Act, we don't have the power to suspend license, revoke a permit, among other things. Only the minister, well, not the minister, sorry, but the disciplinary committee can do that. So there are certain situations where we are powerless. We do not want to infringe on anybody's right and get ourselves in trouble. Remember, everybody has a law in the back pocket now. So we are very careful about that.
Talking about disciplined drivers, how would you describe currently relations between minibus drivers and commuters? In spite of what we're seeing, the instances of disagreement or commotion, bad blood between some minibus drivers and commuters. It's not something I think that is widespread based on what we are seeing. But from your vantage point in terms of the complaints that you are getting.
The way I'm going to answer that, and I've been in bus for like 16, 17 years. There's what you call the community buses, where everybody knows each other. Like the same set of people board your buses almost every day for the week. And you'll watch like probably a Grosley or Viewford bus. Grosley is more commercialized. So sometimes you don't come across that person every day on your bus. So sometimes these situations are settled amicably with the community buses because we know everybody, and sometimes they will just come to the president and settle the issue right there. So there is a bigger bond of relationship and friendship, camaraderie among the commuter and the operator sometimes. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
So it varies what route you actually speaking about certain incidents when it comes to the relationship, and there are certain where it's totally different. We have had incidents on my route when I was president, and it was settled before going to the ministry. And it was very serious.
And your route is?
Jackmel.
Okay.
Freebie, Jackmel, Marigo. But there are instances where some commuters will want to go to the ministry. You watch most times the Grosley, for example, it might be on social media and be blown out of proportion by either parties. Because sometimes social media doesn't give you a true reflection of what happens.
Yeah.
It does not. There are times it may,
Yes.
but it might not. So it depends when you talk about, because you're going to watch every incident, in a basket. You have to watch it in isolation.
How do you instill certain discipline in drivers? For example, in terms of their character and their behavior and issues relating to conflict resolution. Do you, as the NCOPT, do you all take time off to provide training to the drivers?
Well, Tim, we started a program where the endorsement is given by the ministry, so we're out of that. But to drive a bus, I'm going to start by how do you get accepted to be a driver on a bus stand, first of all. You have to bring your police record, a recommendation letter from the previous association if you were driving on one, your driver's license, your ID card. So you bring these things in.
To the NCOPT or the
No,
authorities?
to the association.
To the association. Okay.
And we vet it, and based on that, you accept it.
Okay.
And most associations that are affiliated to council have one constitution. It's across the board.
Right.
There's no disparity in it. If a driver is found wanting, there's a hearing. All associations under the constitution are supposed to have a disciplinary committee. So if the matter is not resolved, it is referred to the disciplinary committee.
Of the respective associations.
Associations.
Yeah, okay.
If it is beyond the associations, then it's referred to the ministry. Now, had we had the disciplinary committee, it would be referred to the National Disciplinary Committee. And on that disciplinary committee, you have somebody from the AG's office, public sector, the ministry, national council. You have a wide cadre of reps. So it's balanced. So this is how we handle the situations.
And you're saying thus far, none of the administrations have been able to put this particular committee together?
We've been promised and promised and promised, and we've not gotten anywhere.
What is your suspicion? Why do you think they have failed to put this in place?
It's just not a priority, Tim, for any government. It's not revenue generating. It's not a priority. And I gave you a tip, and I dare anyone come and tell me otherwise with the sticker issue. The draft was done overnight. It was passed in record time. And I have noticed that. We've discussed that at National Council. Most legislations that are not revenue generating is on the backbench. We've been clamoring for a discipline committee for almost 12, 13 years. And sometimes we wonder why we are treated that way. The government speaks about road safety, for example. And I'm not talking about this government, I'm talking about governments on the whole. We have highlighted what we think are hazardous on the road. We're not taken serious. And we have done that for about like 17, 18 years. And today we have a consultant come in and gather information from us and we'll present it to the government. And this is not the only instance where National Council is used to gather data, information, which we have been given to the ministry personnel. I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about the ministries on the whole of infrastructure or transportation. We are not taken serious. Team, we have commissioned a number of reports. There's the HALCO report. CDP just prepared a report. So we have worked with a number of agencies. The World Bank. I remember World Bank was here probably about 7, 8 years ago. And we were working on the cashless system. And they were giving us technical expertise, not financial. I was part of that thing. Where are we now? 7, 8 years later, where are we now? So no government is taking the minibus sector as serious as we think they're supposed to take us. We may have a part to be blamed, but I would say 75% of the time. And the worst case scenario is when government changes, you have people changing at the ministry. So there's no continuity, which we have lamented for years. So it's a starting process, a learning process. We have to start all over again. It takes us nowhere.
Do you suspect that if there's better coordination between the NCOPT and the Ministry of Infrastructure / Transport, that you would have recorded more gains, recorded more successes as a sector by now?
We've no doubt, Tim. With no doubt. I mean, you know, infrastructure is very huge in terms of the mandate. And I think the minibus sector accounts for a small portion of that. And there's a lot of work in the minibus sector. You have the legislation, you need to know the act, you have the little complaints coming in, there's a lot. So if a lot more attention was given to the minibus sector, we'd be further ahead.
But how can you ensure that the authorities make that sector a priority? Because I am sure that in a run-up, particularly to a general election, there's a lot of consultation that takes place, not only involving this particular administration, but I imagine previous administrations that give you a listening ear because they'd want to avert any kind of open display of industrial action or anything that would disrupt the sector.
Tim, we've had experience where most of our recommendation reports have been shelved. We have a problem in this country, and it's not only infrastructure or transport. You have a lot of symposiums, you have a lot of what they call it capacity building meetings and all that, fancy meetings, and everything is shelved. Implementation is the problem. And we see it all over. You go to all these things, that's why I've made a commitment to myself. I'm not fussing over these things again, to be attending these meetings. Most of this documentation are just shelved. Where are we going? And that happens under most governments. In the bus sector, we have had a lot of consultations, a lot. Reports has been done. We have commissioned a lot of reports. We have brought down consultants so we can prepare a proper document. Where are they?
But the NCOPD has been talking over several years now about having a cashless system and having conductors. What has happened to those two?
Well, Tim, you see, if you have the cashless system, you don't need the conductor. And what we are watching at, one of our greatest concerns is, can a driver really afford, an operator really afford a conductor?
But shouldn't that be seen as a necessity?
We have discussed it. We have discussed it. But Tim, you don't just do things. National Council just stay and just get up one day and just do things. There's a process. You need the data.
Okay, but let's look at the cashless system. You guys have been speaking about this over several years now on countless occasions. And one got the impression every time the subject came up that it would have been implemented sooner than later. Several years have elapsed now, and yet still we have that same conversation. So minibus operator would be robbed, would be injured, and we talk about a cashless system. No sooner that matter has settled, it is no longer in the public domain, we forget about it.
Tim, I will give you some of the hindrances for the cashless system thus far. You need legislation, which I came to earlier. Because for the cashless system to work, you need a good percentage of operators. So which means you need to make it mandatory that it's attached to the route permit. Who passes legislation for that? It's not the National Council, the government. And every time we bring it up, oh, you want to, like, you almost infringing on somebody's rights. There's freedom of association, freedom of this. What do we do? So you see where the bottleneck is? No government wants to pass legislation to make the cashless system mandatory or attached to the route permit. Case in point, NIC. To get operators to pay NIC, make it mandatory, attach it to the permit. We've proposed that. Yet to be done. And these are the little things that matters. When I say little, I don't mean it's nothing, Tim, but these are the things that matter, sorry.
So you're saying that not even the minibus drivers see it as an advantage. It's to their benefit if they make a contribution to the NIC?
Tim, remember you have owners and you have operators. But if it's attached to the route permit, it's mandatory. This is the law. Tim, who will want to pay any fees to anybody? If it's not, I mean, come on.
But there's long-term gain to making such a contribution to the NIC.
We know our culture, the human psyche, we know how we operate. Anytime it comes to pain or changes, people resist. When the route permit was coming a little over 20 years ago, some people thought it was the worst thing, you know. Today, it's one of the best things for most of us. People don't adapt to changes easily. There's always resistance. So sometimes you need the legislation to back it up. And this is where we are at.
There is a particular issue that is definitely, it's before us right now. It's affecting a large section of the St. Lucian society. I'm talking about crime. And minibus operators are not spared. And from time to time, Minibus operators will be attacked, they will be robbed of the day's earnings and so on. How are minibus operators coping with the crime problem? Is it affecting the scheduling of buses, the services that you provide? What time do you operate?
Well, Tim, the crime situation has affected us. Right now, a lot of drivers, because of where the bus stands are located in the city, they do not work late. There are a few bus stands who have approached the authorities to have them shift the bus stand after 6 p.m. or when it's dark, and we get in a hard time. Some agencies, I don't want to be specific there, have said it's not them, it's the police. The police have said it's not them, it's the ministry, so they're passing the buck basically. So some operators have just opted not to work late. If it's rush hour, pick up and go, they would. But to come on the bus and wait, and you need to, we need to acknowledge or admit some bus stands are in remote areas in the city. I don't want to stigmatize any area. I want to be very diplomatic. But there are certain areas that are very remote at nights. You don't have any businesses happening there.
Little pedestrian traffic taking place in those
Very
areas.
little.
And what, is poor lighting an issue as well?
The lighting has improved slightly in the Castries basin, I must admit. But you have the human traffic, except somebody comes for a bus. And you have people coming under the disguise, they're coming for a bus. And things have happened. Because remember, with business activity, you may have more commuting people. You may have more pedestrian traffic. But once it's a remote area, businesses are closed by 6, 5, that's it.
How is this affecting commuters?
Well, it is affecting them. But we need to remember the operator has to safeguard his life. He has a family. He has a family.
Is there, if you cannot have police patrols, if you cannot change the location of those bus stands, what about having CCTV cameras located in those areas? Is that a possibility?
Well, we've mentioned that. We've discussed it with the authorities, and we're waiting to see what happens.
Now, let's look at you raised an issue earlier on with regard to road safety. And there's a particular entity that is undertaking a road safety awareness communication campaign. And we've had so many crashes and collisions occurring on our roads over the last few years, but in particular over the last few weeks. I think we had maybe about 22, 23 or 24 road fatalities already for this year. And a number of them would include minibus drivers and minibuses. How much of a concern is this for the NCOPT? It
is a concern, team. What we find, we highlighted that today with the consultant after we met with them today, after the meeting with Namalco. We think that there's a lapse in enforcing legislation. Team, we watch all the carelessness on the road, the way people drive, and doesn't take away from the state of the road with, poor markings, among other things. But even in Castries, you would see a cyclist riding, a motorcyclist riding with no helmet. And the police would quickly give you a seatbelt ticket instead of charging or stopping this motorcycle. We don't have no breathalyzers. Well, if we have, I have not known any incident where anybody has been charged or anything. So there's a lot, Tim, when it comes to safety that the legislation is not, if it's covering it, it is yet to be enacted. So I'm asking the question, how serious are we as a government, as a people, as a nation, when it comes to road safety?
But when you're talking about crashes and collisions, some people automatically will point an accusatory finger at minibus drivers and cite them as being among the main culprits.
Tim,
what say you to this?
Tim, let us watch as of recent, and if we can go to maybe check the police for statistics. There's a public outcry when a driver is involved in an accident and he's wrong, or he appears to be wrong in the eyes of the public. There's a fatality. But when a driver dies, in a road accident, say, case in point, the most recent, there's no public outcry. And we've had countless occasions where the bus driver, well, based on the markings, based on what we see, what we hear, what is before us, the driver appeared to be right on his side. And he was killed instantly. There was an accident in Bexton a few years ago where I think this gentleman, Roger, died from 2H.
Yeah.
And I think about 3 or 4 people died in that bus. The last time I checked, that matter is yet to go to the courts, you know. So how serious are we about road safety? And team, I can go on other accidents that have bus drivers has been involved in. This is yet to hit the courts. We speak about we've heard about the demerit points. What again? Where is the legislation? Where are we going with that? A driver will, and you know, a driver would have an accident, and probably a very serious accident. The following day, his license is not suspended. He's driving all over the place. So who do you blame? I don't blame the government, but the system. You blame the system.
But who is presiding over the system? The system is not some inanimate object, you know, that is there to enforce certain
No, but team,
rules
I'm
and
just careful.
regulations.
I don't want to say
It is human beings who are presiding over the system to ensure that it functions properly and effectively. And if we are honest with ourselves, we'll realize that definitely what is happening on our roads these days is almost unprecedented, and it is crying out for some kind of remedy, some kind of attention.
It is.
And I don't know if just having a road safety awareness communication campaign will cut it. If you do not have enforcement of the traffic regulations, and if you do not have more traffic
Team,
cops
this is
on our
why
roads.
I started by saying enforcement. Team, it's the same thing with the bus sector. If there's a revocation of one permit, I'm sure other operators will take it. I'm certain. If there are drivers, or driver has a very nasty accident and is found wanting, and you hear, boy, this person has lost their driver's license. Not even suspend, but lost the driver's license, or suspend rather. I'm sure people will take it.
So why aren't we taking heed when other drivers lose their lives, and if they're lucky enough, if they are just injured? Why aren't we taking heed?
Tim, it's just some people for them it's just business as usual. Tim, to get a police report for an accident it takes on average about a year. Where are we going? And I'm not blaming the police, you know, I'm just saying how the system operates. To get a police report.
So who should be blamed? You are a sector, you are the PRO of the NCOPT, and if you know there's a problem involving the presentation of traffic reports, and it takes a year, you should analyze the situation,
Tim,
get to the bottom of it, to understand. To understand what is causing the delay. There must be a reason for it.
Are you telling me the burden of all that is on the National Council?
No, I'm saying if it is affecting your members, if it is affecting drivers.
We all getting affected, you think?
We all, yes.
Motorists on the road getting affected.
Aren't you curious enough to find out what is at the heart of the problem?
Tim, I'll tell you something. With the bad road condition, everybody meets us. Oh, you're not saying anything about the bad roads. Like we are the only one using the roads. I bet you tonight, you'll hear people castigating the National Council in a bad light for us speaking out what is affecting our members. The very same people who might think.
Let's test them right now and open the lines so that you can call with your comments and questions for my guest once again. And he's the PRO of the NCOPT, Mr. Spencer McPhee. Continue, sir, as you were saying.
People think we're supposed to champion the cause for them, and we all suffer the same fate. We all go through the bad roads, the traffic and everything. But it's the National Council. When last did the taxi union speak out about anything like that?
Do we still have a national taxi union?
I should be asking you that, Tim.
But when will, for example, the likes of the NCOPT be taken seriously? Because what you tell me, the lamentation I'm hearing from you this evening is that the authorities are not taking your organization seriously, and sometimes you might have to take drastic decisions that would cause them to act on behalf of your members.
Based on what I said, I've given you proof to back it up. We have spoken about road safety. We are not taken seriously. Isn't that enough? And I can go on. We have lamented the need for a disciplinary committee. Where are we now with that? We have asked for the legislation for the cashless system. Where are we now? Isn't that more than enough that we are not taken seriously? Or we are taken for a ride? You know.
Hold that point, we have a call. Good evening to you, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening. I would like to make a contribution.
Go ahead, ma'am, you are on the air. Go ahead, please, caller. Yes, caller, go ahead, please. We are hearing you.
Yes, let me just lower the volume of my television because I'm getting some feedback.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. You should have done it before. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
I concur with everything that the gentleman has said, and with road accidents. In my small community, I realize that as a driver of recent, two things causes road accidents. One, the potholes. There are incidents whereby drivers try to avoid a pothole, and it may be around a bend or some blind incline, and another vehicle can run into you on that occasion. There are some occasions whereby there is a pothole. You are driving ahead of other vehicles. You recognize the pothole and you're trying to right the pothole because the pothole is on your side. But the driver behind you may not even recognize that this is what you're doing. And sometimes they just run into you. So with the conditions of the roads, it don't only damage your vehicle parts, but it causes road accidents. And then who takes responsibility for that? You as the driver bears the responsibility. Will the government take responsibility? Because it is because the roads are not in proper conditions that some of these accidents occur. You know.
Okay, let me get a reaction from Mr. McPhee. Thank you so much for calling, ma'am. And please, I'd like to beg you, members of the audience calling this broadcast, turn down the volume of whatever device you are using before you call the program. Please. We have a call. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening,
yes, sir. One of the things I must agree with you is the contractors of those two roads, especially the first contractor. I find, they're just making a mess out of that contract. Because so long Sir William is on that contract, on that Millennium Highway. And it is not, to the standard, of the bottom trade. When you look at the kind of everywhere the patch, you find a hole in the next 4 or 5 months. Something is not right. Another thing I want to talk about is the Grosley. The Grosley Road is not that bad. And on the morning, sometimes I feel sorry for the people that have to travel to Grosley to go to work. Sometimes they get there at 7 in the morning and they cannot get a bus to go to work for at least 8:40. And I believe a time like now, if you said the bus association is doing a lot better, they're improving. Today, you all should have coasters, not buses going up Grosley. They should have coasters. And I find what is really happening within the bus association is dog eat dog. There is nothing for so long. You all form that association. It's know if you take a look at what's happening on a morning and the Grizzly Boston, sir? Do you?
Okay, let me allow him to respond. Thank you so much. Mr. McPhee?
Yes, we've gotten the complaints about the Grizzly situation. However, they're not affiliated to us. Let me just say that categorically clear. And one need to understand the Castries Grizzly Highway, there's a lot of traffic, team. The buses are caught in traffic. I'm not saying that better cannot be done, but since Grizzly are affiliated to us, we don't really have first-hand knowledge of what's happening with them.
Okay, we have a call. Good evening to you, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, okay. Tim, and good evening to your guest. Is it the PRO?
Yes.
The PRO, you said? Okay.
Mr. McPhee, yeah.
All right, Mr. McPhee. Okay. I joined the program a little late, Tim, but I've been listening for about the last 10 or so minutes, right? And I've been listening to Mr. McPhee, and I would like to concur with a lot of the different points that he brought about, right? But he is, I'm getting the impression that their hands are so tied that, there's nothing that they can do. One question I'd like to ask first, insofar as the different, how would I say it, bus routes, do you have like individual associations?
Yes, we do. Each route is managed by an individual association.
Right. So are you saying then that you all are not capable of having a committee put in place in so far a disciplinary committee for your individual association?
Okay, so I think you did acknowledge you joined the program late, but I stated earlier, each association, according to the Constitution, should have a disciplinary committee. And if there are matters that are beyond us, it is referred to the ministry.
Well, okay. Well, if that's the current system, then that means your committees are almost like toothless tigers. But let's go past that. I would like us first as people, as people. I don't think we have recognized our power insofar as how things can end up in the country. I guess that is why we are in the state that we are today in terms of governance. The Minibus Association has a lot of power that they don't recognize that they have, and they're not putting it to good use. Although I must say, I find there were a few bus strikes under the former administration. I don't know what was the cause of that, but there was. I have not seen any, and the road conditions have been atrocious and deplorable, and so far for the life of this new administration. Albeit they've made some improvements recently, they've been doing some potholing, but it is really a far cry what we are getting for potholing in St. Lucia. And as people on the road every day, you guys are taking the brunt of these bad roads in terms of your parts, brakes, tires, and everything like that. And you all do have the power to actually stop things, because if the bus sector takes a strike, then something will happen. I don't think you're going to get the public taking a strike. That's not going to happen. So it has to be a sector like y'all that has the power to stop the country for a while, to make the politicians or the powers that be, understand that there is a problem. And we do have a major problem when it comes to the condition of the roads, when it comes to also the discipline of your members. There are some members that are really giving the bus sector a bad name insofar as how they drive, how they conduct themselves. Always seems to be in a hurry. The dollar seems to be the most important thing for them, and they throw all caution to the wind while they're plying their routes. So I think that you all do have some power that you all can use, and if each individual association has a disciplinary committee, I think the disciplinary committee should be, putting teeth on those tigers so that, you all could discipline your individual members. I think it can be done, because apparently the system that you're depending on is not working. So when it's not working, we have to make it do for ourselves. And that's what we have to do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
I want to just respond. I'm pretty certain that the caller would agree that there are certain matters that are beyond us. Team, we don't issue permits, we don't issue license. So if there's a situation where probably that's what is warranted, we don't have the power.
Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air. Hello. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, caller.
Hello.
Caller, do you have a device on that's causing the feedback?
Good night.
Yes, good evening to you, caller. Go ahead, please. Okay. When you call, please turn on the volume of whatever device that you're listening to or you're using to listen to this broadcast, because if you don't, it will cause a terrible feedback. Good evening, you're on the air. Hello, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening.
Good evening to you, caller.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello.
go ahead with your contribution, please.
Yes, I have a question for the gentleman.
Sure, go ahead.
What I realize, why when the other government was in power, most of the bus drivers went on strike. The road was bad. Gas price was low. Your bus drivers went on strike. Okay? And right now the gas price is so high. Not one of you all talking anything. Not one demonstration. Not one protest against this government. So isn't this government much better than the previous government? When you was getting incentive, you're getting everything that you needed. You are going to protest against the previous government. That road is road that. And right now that it is so bad that not one of you are saying anything about it. So what's going on right now there? You know what you're going through right now? With this present government? Do you like it?
All right, sir.
If it was good for the previous government that was there, so it's not good for this one for you to do the same also to get what you want? I want to know.
Okay, let me get a response from Mr. McPhee. Particularly call Mr. McPhee with regard to the price of fuel. There's been $16.50 for one now.
Well, what we've done, remember we got a price adjustment recently. It's not a price increase because it was a 2013 price adjustment. And we are awaiting the CDP report, because the CDP report covers a number of, well, it's vast, so to speak. And what we are going to do right now, the CDP report has recommended that we will not just be increasing by 25 cents over dollar. There will be a method used. So right now we are in the process of collecting data referring to the CDP and the government. So there will be a standard way of charging for bus fares.
Good evening, Newsbank Alive, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening. I want to ask Mr. Maxi, are the price of fuel cheaper now than the past 5 years?
Mr. McPhee?
No, it's not cheaper, sir.
It's not cheaper than the past 5 years when the other admission was there?
I just said no, sir.
Well, you know what I think should happen? If I was the government, I would stop the road construction and send Namalco back to the country.
All right. Thank you so much for calling. We take some more of your calls once again for my guest, Mr.
Tim,
Spencer McPhee of the NCOPT.
There is something that occurred on the bus. You want to take that call?
Yeah, let's take the call. Good evening. Newsbank Alive, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening to you, caller.
Yeah, I just want to make some suggestions.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I've noticed the persons living on the west coast, say from Soufriere, Canaries, have a lot of difficulties in bus coming to the city. I have co-workers that if they don't get the bus by 6 a.m., then it's basically just calling sick. So maybe the minibus association on this side of the government could have a bus system where it lives on the hour. So at least, if you need to get to work for 7, then you need to leave at 6. If you need to get to work at 8, you leave at 7. It's very difficult for
Caller, what
from
time
Canaries.
are you referring to? Because I'm a little familiar with what's happening
Well,
to Castries.
in the morning early is okay, but I'm referring to persons maybe that are working in the tourism sector.
Yeah, what time
Most time-
are you looking at, sir? What time in the morning?
Maybe I would say like 10, 11, thereabouts.
Okay, that's when the lull in human traffic is. Yeah, there's a lull. Yes.
Yeah, because
Are you from Sufa, caller?
No, I have a lot of friends and co-workers from that side of the island.
What we advise people like that with these issues, they take it to the association and adjust accordingly.
Okay.
They would, trust me, they would.
And then
if you're not satisfied, you go make mention
of a few callers go make mention of the Groseley situation. And I'm of the opinion that the Castries to Vieux-Fort and Castries to Groseley, we should have some 28, 30 seaters operating for ease of comfort. So it will not interfere with the running of the smaller shuttle buses. But if you go in from Castries to Groseley town, you would just take a direct bus that will not stop along the way. So it wouldn't affect the minibus stopping at Mega G or at Maryseal or at BZ Gap, you know?
Caller, like I said earlier, Groseley is not affiliated to the National Council. But I think within last year or so, they started a program where some buses were just, like from the city to Shock roundabout and turn back to Castries.
Okay.
And some were in the long route. But I don't know if they have continued. I don't know the status of it because, like I said earlier, they are not affiliated to us.
Yeah. And lastly, even the Caroli system, it is very worrisome in terms of, I live in that area, and when I drive down on my parents' vehicle, sending my offer rides to Boston because I know they're trying to get to the main road, the highway to get to work. And then the buses sometimes are packed in town. You know, they should be maybe moving in the half hour. They had that during the COVID where they would move every half an hour. If you have 5-6 persons, then you need to go, you know, or your turn is forfeited. But then persons have a lot of issues in those smaller areas where persons have a lot of private vehicles, like Caroli and maybe Chase Garden.
Okay, caller. Thank you so much.
I'll make a note of that.
Appreciate your contribution. We have another call. Good evening to you, Newsmaker Live. You're on the air.
Good evening, Tim.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
And good evening to your guest. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening, caller.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Tim, you know, I was going to ask a question, but in fact, your guest answered the question.
Mm-hmm.
And the question I was going to ask is simple. All the bus, what you call national bus bodies, because he says the name is the national, yeah? Are all the bus, what you call it, of the different constituencies?
The associations?
Yes.
The local associations, yeah.
Yes. Are they all connected to the national body?
To the NCOPT?
Yes.
There are associations that are not affiliated to the National Council.
So we know Groseley is
the Denneries, Mondidon, Grand Riviere.
So here lies my concern. I don't take the bus, but I have a concern based on what the caller said. I am in the hotel industry, and one of the ease of doing business, and I say the ease of doing business as a general terminology, is the ability for people to be mobile, to get to point A, to get to point B, in order for them to, one, conduct business. So that is, you may have a gentleman who's looking to take a bus to go and sell his produce wherever, all right? Or go to and from work during the course of the day, depending on the different times of the day. And this is where my concern is. You have a national body, but yet still you have other associations. Now, if I am correct, the definition of an association is supposed to be an organized group which has members of different, let's use clubs as a terminology, not members coming together. I am living at Bapatat, you living at this place, so we have the Masha Association. No, there's something that doesn't add up. And I think one of the issues you have in our bus system, in our national bus system, and I question it, do we truly have public transportation? So if you have an overseeing body, which is supposed to be the National Association, if you want to call it that, how come it is not mandatory for all the different buses or groupings. You know, you have the Leclerc bus drivers, you have the Dennery bus drivers, to fall naturally in a grouping that is representing what you call it, Dennery, Grosley, and all the others you made mention, to then fall under the National Council. Because who is guarding the guards? Who is ensuring that things go the way they're supposed to? Who is going to discipline the drivers? You mean the same organization that they're affiliated to is going to discipline them? If you have a national association, so something does not add up. And sadly, in our St. Lucian society, you find many people, for whatever reason, don't truly want to follow what should be the natural course. We want to circumvent. So you said there are many other associations, but there is a national association. You cannot have 3 football associations in St. Lucia. You have one national association that runs football, which Black Hat and everybody goes to say, can I put on a football tournament? You get endorsed by the national body as a business entity to put on football games, which will then pass on. So something needs to be done for persons like the court who just lodged a very important point. How do we mobilize our people who sadly in some cases work the graveyard shift? Somebody has to work it. Yes? Somebody has to go to work for 11 o'clock. So sadly, I get a job, I'm living in Canaries, but I get a job in a major resort or hotel in the northern part of the island. I can't take the job because I can't get to work. I'm always late. That's the time frame I can make it because I have this I want to do in the morning. Like in the U.S., unfortunately, some people work, and I say unfortunately, 2 free jobs. In St. Lucia, you can't work 3 jobs because of the system. Right? Now, maybe that's what you can do at a young age to save to go to college, to save to build a part house, and so drives the economy. Where now we're looking at 24-hour gas stations or whatever the case may be. So drives business. So the economy turns over faster. The public minibus system needs to understand that the word public is in front of it. And are you doing a service to the public?
Okay,
no matter where they live, systems must be in place. Whether you then go to 9 because the 14-seaters are too expensive or whatever. But thank you so much for your time. As usual, Tim, have a blessed one.
You too, sir.
Thank you, caller.
The issue I like, just to piggyback on what the caller said, was why it's not mandatory that some of the associations, or all of the associations, are members of the National Council on Public Transportation.
The Constitution makes provision for that, freedom of association.
Okay. So it's not mandatory. If you want to join the NCOPT, you join. But you don't benefit from it in terms of training opportunities?
Of course you benefit, Tim. I mean, when we lobby with the government, we negotiate on behalf of them.
So why do you think those associations have not joined the NCOPT?
Some associations want things their way. There are people on the executive of certain associations who may have their agenda. And don't forget that. They may have their personal agenda. For some reason, they may just like the president or somebody and just feel like, hey, I don't want to associate with this guy, and influence the others that, hey, that's the route we're taking.
Good evening. News Make Alive. You're on the air.
Yes, good evening to you and your guests.
Good evening to you, caller.
I'm trying to make it brief and short. In Bextor, Rabi, the Valley, and to Beaufort, it is very difficult to get a bus to go to Beaufort. What are you all doing to remedy that?
What time of day are you referring to?
What time of day are you referring to? Beg your pardon?
Can you repeat what you said?
What time of day
are you referring to, sir?
All the time, of course. Once you Bextor, you have to pay money to go to Castle City to the tourist bus to go to Beaufort. Right? But what I noticed that in these areas, then with the Valley, Denny, and Bextor, you cannot get a straight bus to go to Beaufort.
Along the route you're referring to? You're referring to along the route, sir?
Beg your pardon?
You're referring to along the route to get a bus from along the route Bexon.
That's right, that's right. Along the route. And
I'm
one
just
more
trying to
thing.
follow what you're saying there. Yeah.
Beg your pardon?
I'm just trying to follow up on what you are
Yeah,
saying
if
there.
you by the wayside and then you mean Bexon, Labby, the Valley, and then it is difficult to get a bus to go to Beaufort, and you want to go to Beaufort. It is extremely difficult because all the tourist buses pass full. Right? You know that most of 99.9% of the tourist buses pass full, so there's no space for you. Right? And what I are doing to remedy that. And one more thing, 5 years ago, a gallon of gas was $13.95. Okay? Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. McPhee?
You see, the thing is, with these situations, we need to collect the data and speak to the associations about it. Tim, if this thing are not brought to us, we wouldn't know.
You have a call. Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yeah, good evening, Tim, and to your guests.
Good evening to you, caller.
The callers behind made some sense when he was trying to define the association and the current body that he's under. Is it the National or this
National Council?
National Council on Public Transport.
Okay, good. Now, another caller before him also gave the impression that the gentleman there was saying his hands were tied. With all this information that we're trying to understand, that we're hearing, then what is the rule of the association? If its hands are tied, it can't do it. What is its rule? What was it formed for? Is it just a thing with a name?
The association is the manager of the route. The bus stands and the route, they are directly responsible for operation on the route and the bus stand.
So I think what the caller meant was the NCOPT, National Council on Public Transportation. What is the role of the NCOPT if its hands are tied? You know what he's saying, caller?
Yeah. What is it there for? What is its real rule then? What is it supposed to do?
Caller, if you reflect on what I said, there are certain situations where our hands are tied. We need legislation to moving forward. To give us
okay, so that tells me then that when it was formed, some things weren't made clear as to the powers you would need to have, or you're just being blatantly ignored by the government in power. Is that what you're saying? They're just blatantly ignoring you?
I am not saying that the government in power is ignoring us. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying governments on the whole are not giving us the legislation we need moving forward. Am I clear on that? So I'm not specifying the essential of party government.
I don't really mean that you were saying the one in power. I was looking at government in general. So you have a association and
a council.
A council. I'm getting the idea that you have made it clear to the ruling body.
Would you agree that you form an organization and as you go along you see some loopholes and shortcomings? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. But when you form in an organization, you have to have your mindset as to what you're forming. There'll be loopholes, but the loopholes can't be fundamental ones. It means you set in your mind when you were forming. The loopholes you should be getting out should be minor. Because you're
okay, for example, when the council was formed, I'm sure when it was formed, the cashless system was never thought of. Agreed?
The what, sorry?
The cashless system, 20 years ago.
Yes.
It was never thought of. Do you blame the council for that? Is that a shortcoming of the council?
No. That's a minor loophole for me because I was listening to all of the different comments about road accidents and
another question for you.
So now you're asking me questions.
No, but I'm just trying to explain to you. It's not shortcomings, it's just oversights probably. When the council was formed, you think we thought we'd have so much grievous situations with commuter and drivers?
I will answer that by asking you a question. Sure. When was the council formed? What year?
The council was formed about 22 years ago.
22 years ago?
Yeah, about that.
My goodness, it was from 22 years.
So it was formed in 2002?
Yeah, about
2002, we're in 2024. What has changed as far as people at the helm? Were people not there that were there before? They were fired? Is it the same people?
Remember something I mentioned earlier? There's no continuity at the ministry. For example, when Senior Minister King came in, he was not versed with the Act, the Traffic Act, and what governs the minibus sector. We had to...
A minister?
A minister would know everything, you know, sir. I'm not defending him. Remember, you have a minister.
Okay, but Mr. McPhee, don't you have technocrats in the ministry?
They keep on changing them. Yeah.
The fundamentals.
That's why I said they are changing
basic.
people in the ministry. Almost every government or minister comes with their team.
Yes, caller. Go ahead, caller.
But this is why when they change, this is why you have to maintain the goal so that they are being updated. You just can't say they come in and then they don't know.
Let me give you an example. We have prepared a document for the government on the negotiations we had with them, the agreement we had with them. It has expired. Say election was called today or tomorrow, Tim, and Labour was, God forbid, to lose the election. You know we have to start from scratch with that negotiations.
But so technocrats will change again in the ministry?
You never know.
Yeah, but your association stands firm. You created that for that purpose. You have to stand the ground to say we can't start all over.
We have no control over who is being implemented in positions or installed in positions and the knowledge of what it entails in the bus sector.
But that word knowledge there again, somebody don't have the knowledge or not competent
so
enough.
So it's not our fault. It is just what happens.
Because we have too many associations and businesses just have name and they're not playing a role of the name says or something. Something just do add up like that caller said. Just, it has to get forth its part and stay on the path.
In any organization, what have you, there have to be continuity. If there's no continuity, you start from scratch. This is the situation we are faced with almost every time.
Well, you always be starting from scratch, yes, sir.
So are you blaming us for that now, the council for that?
No, but you're the one saying you have to start by scratch. Why would you have to start by scratch? You should be headlong to continue what you have formed, not start by scratch. Starting by scratch over and over again, that's like a rolling stone that I go gather nowhere. You have to set that foundation and keep it as it is so that whoever come in there, no, they're not changing that until the ice breaks.
Okay, question. We are clamoring for a disciplinary committee. We can force the government to give to us?
No, you just stand your ground because you'll be maintaining something there over the years that we can attest to. We can verify that it has been there, and we can now turn around and pass the buck or blame the person that wasn't acknowledging the system that was in place.
Let me ask you a question.
But caller, in defense of the NCOPT, I've been doing this for a while now and discussing the same issue with regard to setting up of a committee by the Ministry of Transport for a long time now. And you have different NCOPT presidents singing the same tune, that the ministry has failed to put this in place.
Tim, if we were to say...
let me give another caller a chance.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for calling, sir.
If we were to call a strike, for example, for the disciplinary committee, everybody would fall on our backs. For that, you're striking. You're crippling the country for that. Right or wrong?
But why should you worry about what people
I'm just saying,
are saying about you? When the action you take, you believe it's a legitimate one.
Tim, there are certain things
you can't do things to please people all the time, you know.
It's not about pleasing people, you know, Tim.
We have a call. Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air. Hello. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, caller.
All right, we keep begging people to, when you call this talk show and any other talk show in St. Lucia, turn down the volume of your television or whatever device that you're using to listen to the program. You're saying? All right, let's take the call. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Tim.
Good evening to you.
Tim.
Good evening to you, caller.
Good night, caller.
And Mr. Mark Tree.
Good night, good night.
Yes, I'm calling pertaining to some comments that were made earlier concerning the Grocery Ministers Association.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Do you know that the Constitution of St. Lucia gives you the freedom of association?
Yes, we're aware of that.
I think I did say that earlier too.
Yeah, I realized Mr. Mark Fee said that, but you know, some of the contributors are saying, talking about freedom of minibuses not affiliated to National Council. But the law of the land says you can associate with whoever you want.
I did say that.
I know. So I'm just reaffirming it again.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
But isn't it to the advantage, caller, of all the associations to be part of the NCOPT? Isn't it to their advantage?
You see, because, Tim, some associations do not like the way the NCOPT is being run. So that, especially the Grizzly Minibus Association.
Or do you think that they are
that is why they are not affiliated to NCOPT. Check another thing, Tim. You have how many other associations? Mondido, Denry, Grand Riviere. Coming out, this association itself from NCOPT. Something is wrong. You understand? Something is wrong. And we must deep dive into what is wrong in NCOPT, why some of its members are disassociating themselves from NCOPT.
Would you agree with me that some of the decisions, some of the reasons why some associations have disassociated, they are yet to get it resolved? By disassociation?
Let me tell you,
I will not go into detail.
I do not know why some of the associations are not affiliated to NCOPT. Okay. I can tell you why I know why Grizzly is not, but I will not want to go into that tonight. The second point I want to make. Do you know that Grizzly Minibus Association have at least 180 buses on the road every day?
I am aware.
So therefore, there's not a problem with providing service to the people of Grizzly at all.
This is why.
So what is the issue?
I said traffic is one of them.
It's traffic. Traffic is the problem.
I did mention that earlier in defense of Grizzly, sir.
Right. I know, but I want to affirm it because some people keep making it as though Grizzly do not have enough buses. We have 180 buses on the road every day.
So you are a bus driver from the Grizzly route?
I am a bus driver from Grizzly.
So caller, I want to ask another question. Go ahead. Are you all still separating the buses from Shock?
Yes, we are still doing that.
All right.
We have buses going direct to Grizzly, and we have buses going.
I was correct when I stated that. Because I wasn't sure if you continue.
I heard you say that too.
Okay, thank you.
I heard you say that too as well.
Just for the
other thing about the Grizzly Minibus Association is Grizzly minibuses are on the road from early as 5 o'clock in the morning.
I am aware of that.
Right. The third point I want to make is a contributor said that they should be putting coasters on the Grizzly route and Beaufort route. Let me tell you something. The route, Grizzly route is busy only from probably about 6 to about 8:49 o'clock.
Most of the routes.
That's the rush hour.
Most of the routes.
Some buses, when they come back from 9 o'clock, all 12 o'clock, that's when they make another trip. So how can you tell me you would want to put a coaster to stay on a route from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and that bus taking probably about 15 to 20 or half an hour to full? It is not feasible.
But caller, do you agree that something must be done to remedy that problem of having...
The thing that has to be done, Tim, is for let me give you an example. You know the Grizzly minibuses, when they were coming down to Castries, they will try and to avoid traffic, go through, I don't know the name of the road, but where the bridge is built, you go and you come through Corinth.
That's at the back of Sunville there?
At the back of Sunville there.
Yeah.
And they would avoid the traffic to try and bring people down. You know, there's a sign now that they cannot do that again.
Buses and so on, yeah.
They cannot do it again. They stop them. So the problem is not the buses. They try to help, but the authorities are causing more problems. You understand? So the problem on the Grizzly route is...
Has Grizzly presented the case to the ministry?
How many times they have done that?
Okay.
And probably the stopping of buses passing at back of Sunday is, I'm told, is because of the police. The police are the ones who because sometimes police put up some signs, and it's the ministry that have to put signs. The police are supposed to enforce it, but now sometimes the police put up these signs without even the ministry knowing.
Wow.
So that is the problem that there. And the minibus sector is dynamic, Tim. I can tell you, I've been in the sector a long time, over 20 years. I have heard people stay outside and criticize the minibus sector. I'm talking the entire sector very harshly. Some of these people come into the sector and they realize what is happening. They get even worse than some of the people over there.
Well, you're on point on this one. You're on point.
It's difficult. Even when complaints are made about a minibus driver.
Are you on the executive, caller?
Hello? He's the only one you will see it. But what about the commuters that violate the minibus drivers? Nothing has been said.
Okay, Mr. McPhee wants to know if you're a member of the executive of the Grizzly Minibus Association.
No, I'm not. I am not.
Okay.
I am not.
But we have to end it there, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the contribution. That was our last caller. Let's take the final comments from you, Mr. Spencer McPhee, PRO of the NCOPT.
I think it would be incumbent of me not to have mentioned that there was an unfortunate situation on the bus. I'm not going to say the route.
Mm-hmm.
But whilst in traffic, waiting for so long, a lady gave birth on a minibus.
When was that?
That was probably about a week ago.
Okay.
And we would not be that public, because St. Lucia is small and everybody would. I'm not going to say which route. And it was mentioned at the meeting today again. That's how bad it is, Tim. Wow. A lady gave birth on a bus, on a minibus, from the West Coast Road. So when we agitate, or we
at least what time? It was morning, midday, afternoon?
That I did not confirm, because Tim, that was so trivial. I did not. Yeah.
Anyway, final comment? Yeah, you're saying?
And Tim, people need to understand the council members, the councillors on the National Council are bus operators, so we have first knowledge of what's happening. In concluding, Tim, I want to thank DBS for having us there, and we are available at any time, and I'm hoping for the best based on our meeting today. And like I say, it was a cordial meeting, not fruitful. We cannot say fruitful yet, but we're hoping for the safety of motorists, that something is done on the roads in St. Lucia. And I was specific on the West Coast Road, but around St. Lucia. Sorry about that.
All right, so thank you so much for being my guest on this evening's Newsmaker Live, Mr. Spencer McPhee, PRO of the National Council on Public Transportation. And to you, thank you so much for watching and contributing via your calls. If it's Wednesday, it's Newsmaker Live. Time now for the clip that peaked.
You have two options. Option A is to stay with your wife for the rest of your life. Option B.
B. Option B. Lock कर दो.
Have yourself a very good evening. My name is Timothy Polion, saying good night and see you next time.
I, Philip Joseph here.
I would like to be judged as being the Prime Minister, not being judged as being part of a government.
Came into government that we had a manifesto and a vision and mission that had been approved by my party, by the highest body.
Basel 11 has not been in existence. 50 was...
Giant getting bazooka. You're spraying big on to knock out mosquitoes.
I have never had a joint account with anybody in my life. Not my ex-wife, not my children, nobody. And I will refer that to the Privileges Committee.
What about the culture of people getting into office and not being effective in taking...
What people become Prime Minister of St. Lucia have been the most ready.
Let's do it this Wednesday, because if it's Wednesday, it's Newsmaker Live.